What was one thing you thought was true that turned out to be false?
My grandmother celebrated her 60th anniversary with my grandfather, who made her life a living hell. I used to think that my grandparents had a perfect marriage. They have been married for a long time, have 6 children and 10 grandchildren. I am one of those grandchildren. They had their first child when my grandmother was just 16 and my grandfather 21. The questionable ages aside, they are the epitome of a grand love story that endured challenges through the years. Or so that's what their children tell the guests at their anniversary party. They know the truth, they just don't think it's a good story to tell. My grandfather was back then called a true man. He had this old-world mentality that women should stay in the kitchen, raise kids, do housework and never raise their voice at their husbands. Today, we call him abusive. According to his children, though, he was the perfect husband and father. My grandmother wasn't even out of high school when she had her first child. Again, back then, it wasn't out of the ordinary. She married the boy her parents told her would take care of her. She raised their 4 sons and 2 daughters to adulthood. She also buried 5 babies who didn't make it to term. She was the ideal wife who cleaned his house, cooked him food, washed his clothes, etc. All the while also doing odd jobs to help with the house budget. I know all that because, again, their children boasted their mother's qualities to the guests. What they didn't tell the guests was that their mother wanted to leave their father around 20 years ago, but they all convinced her that she was wrong. According to my father and his siblings, their mother was selfish for wanting to leave an old man to fend for himself. My grandmother waited for his children to grow up and have families of their own before informing them that she wanted to leave their father. Her selfish children got angry and dissuaded her from making the wrong decision. Her husband told her that she couldn't just throw away the love that they nurtured for decades. With everyone else against her, she stayed. She was looking forward to losing her husband, but not her children. But my God, she hates that man. He didn't always hit my grandmother, but it wasn't a rare occurrence either. He believed that it was his duty as a husband to discipline his wife. That also wasn't out of the norm then. No one would bat an eye if a husband hit his wife. He would often go on a fishing trip with his friends, leaving my grandmother to take care of the kids and the household all by herself, all the while also doing odd jobs here and there. If my grandmother somehow found the time to herself, anything she did or by would be called frivolous. She had to deal with his bad moods, which came often, and make sure she would not have a job that would take away her time to take care of the household and her husband. Otherwise, she would be called irresponsible. She hated her husband so much, and she made no secret of her feelings. Her children just didn't care. They didn't want her to leave her husband for appearance's sake. I remember my father, his siblings, and their respective spouses discussing their mother. She was, according to them, too old at 50-something to start anew. It was also apparently humiliating if other people knew a middle-aged woman left her husband to fend for herself. They called her selfish. Our grandmother knew it was too late to change her children, but not her grandchildren. She had instilled in us to never marry someone who did not see us as equals. And always have an exit plan. And I took that to heart. I once joked to her that she should have just pushed grandfather down the stairs. The look she gave me told me that she considered that more than once. So while her children kept with the appearances, telling the guests at the 60th anniversary party that they were a perfect couple and that how resilient marriages built then were, we, the grandchildren, knew the truth. My grandparents stayed together, not because they loved each other, but because one of them was trapped in. Their marriage is not brittle like today's marriages are because wives today have choices and freedom to prioritize their happiness. They don't need to suffer like my grandmother did.
If you liked the story, please give it a thumbs up. Share the video and subscribe for more. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. Thank you very much.